No Sasquatch were harmed in the recording of this podcast.
Hey, I'm Connor from Bigfoot Anon, and I've traveled from Ohio to Florida, across America, and even up to Canada looking for these creatures. And I'm happy to be here today while the stars align on Bigfoot Crossroads. What a legendary day.
Welcome to the show. Thanks for being here, man.
Thanks for having me, man.
I've kept up with you for a while now. Here we are. Schedules have worked out. You're in Florida, I believe?
Yes, sir. In the Panhandle.
The Panhandle. Now, I've heard tell that the Panhandle area is kind of squatchy. Is that true?
Yes. And I feel like it has magnetized me my whole life to be here because right now, just in my trailer, I am less than 10 miles away from Ocheesee Pond, where the Ocheesee Pond wildman was captured in 1873. And that resides in the Garden of Eden, a 15 square mile area that also includes Torreya State Park, where Stacy Brown got the thermal footage of that 9-footer. So every day when I lay down on my pillow, I'm thinking squash ape or skunk ape, sheep squatch. There's Huggin' Molly. There's the Mobile Wolf Woman, the stump jumper, the rod bender, the cabbage man. It's all just around here in pretty much arm's length. So I feel like I've been brought here for a reason.
Have you ever visited the Green Swamp?
Oh, yeah. I've had some crazy activity in the Green Swamp. We've recorded strange whoops. One of my members actually got attacked by hornets and had to leave early because her throat was swelling up. We saw a falcon with a broken neck. I found hair on a barbed wire fence that when we put it through a microscope, it was clear, gray, tan, and a little bit of green. And it's very interesting because it correlates with a lot of other Sasquatch hair samples that have been found all across America and even in other continents too. But yeah, the Green Swamp is a truly magical place. When I first moved to Florida, I lived in Lakeland. And again, I was right there, right in the Green Swamp, right by Circle B Reserve, where they had huge alligators. It was a dream come true for an Ohio kid who, grew up on the farm and then on the Lake Erie. And I always dreamed about sharks and alligators. And now I'm deep sea fishing with the dolphins and then looking for the swamp thing. So I've manifested this my whole childhood and now I'm living my dream. It's very cool.
So you're in a giant playground, essentially.
Yes. And then I work at a comic book store. So I talk to witnesses all the time. I'm not scared to say I believe in the paranormal and Sasquatch. I'm always trying to spread awareness, honestly, to these hunters and to these boaters that, are kind of reckless and careless. I tell them about Ben McDaniel. He's a missing 401 case that he went missing right around here, and they never found his body. They looked in caves, in the water, in the swamps, never found it. And then there's also been at the Ocheesee Pond where the wild man was captured. There was also a child captured there by the wild man clan, and he was able to escape, and the legend has lived on. So it's really cool talking to these firsthand witnesses or family members of people that have captured the Sasquatch. And then the wild man, to kind of round up that story, in 1873, he was captured in the swamp after harassing women and children, and then Civil War veterans teamed up with Native American gatherers and then surrounded this thing deep in an island near the Devil's Half Acre. And, David Paulides, he says, the devil's in the details. It's right there. But then they captured this creature and they sent it to the capital, to Tallahassee. And the governor said, no way, send him to Chattahoochee Hospital. And all the film nerds out there, you guys know Gary Oldman was in a movie called Chattahoochee that talks about the hospital basically being a prison and an experimental place. So you got to think what they were doing to the wild man for 3 years. And then they said he passed away and they buried him with a bunch of Native Americans. Well, my buddy is the head IT guy of the hospital now, and he lives on campus. And I spend a lot of nights over there. So we get to walk the grounds, and it's very interesting to soak up the vibes. And they say they put a building on top of the graveyard, so you can never really get exactly to it, but you can feel that he's there. But I also want to keep an open mind to maybe he escaped, maybe they let him go, maybe he didn't pass away. But the descendants of the Ocheesee Pond Wildman still lurk today, and we've interviewed multiple of them on our YouTube channel, and then I'm also making a documentary there too, just because some of the evidence is so crazy, and the footprints and the casts, and then it goes into there's been mummies found of Native Americans, and I'm big on those all used to live together. The Sasquatch taught the Native Americans about spirituality, medicine, and everything they've ever done, to lay their foundation of their framework. I think it was the mound builders, the sun worshipers, the giants, the hairy men, the pretty much gods back of that day. They're the ones who traded the information. So this is my church. I'm talking about the descendants of Cain and Esau and, the pyramids. And some people want to laugh at me because I believe in Harry and the Hendersons, but I'm here to build that bridge stronger, to show that it's in all these religious books. It is talked about between all the native tribes. And then it has been with us all the time. The Grinch, Shrek, and even just the idea of people like living under your bed. That's the little people. That's the Pukwudgies, cryptids, tooth fairies. We write in cursive. We spell words. Like, paranormal is just normal. And we all have superpowers. Deja vu, electricity, love. All those are unexplainable and not really measurable to a source. We can try to put numbers on it, but it goes beyond our reach. And I'm big on, if Bigfoot's real, then what else is? And Bigfoot is real.
Wow. Man, you are by far the most passionate person I have ever talked to about this subject.
Thanks, man. I live and die by this. And most people that have camped with me and, even spend 15 minutes with me, you will see that very quickly and closely. But I have so much fun with it every single day, but I'm dead serious about it too. But I can, talk to a little 6-year-old and connect with them and get them interested and get some information. And I can also sit down with, the best of the academia. So it's real cool. Throw me around into the fire and I'm going to come out with some marshmallows.
Well, it's important to bridge that gap between science and the world of cryptids and paranormal and Bigfoot and everything, as well as the bridge to the general public. Mm-hmm. And it takes people like you to do that.
Definitely, man.
We talked a little bit before we started recording about, you speaking at conferences and kind of waking everybody up. That's been on my mind lately, how basically you have me and my generation of older squatchers, which there's even, another couple generations that were around before me. Kind of the old guard, used to doing things the old ways. And now you're kind of part of this newer generation that's more inclusive and more opening and a lot less negative. And you guys are making some really big waves and kind of disrupting the system. Do you see that as factual? Is that something that's happening?
Yes, definitely. And it comes in many different forms, because sometimes the older generation is the OG and they're open arms and they take me camping, take me hunting, tell me all the techniques. And I love that. And then some are, cold shoulder and kind of like not jealous, but they just don't like the style, don't like the technique. They're not into the social media aspect. They don't care about going live. They don't care about podcasts. Some people say that they don't want people learning about Bigfoot from YouTube. They want them to be reading encyclopedias and articles. And they don't know that, YouTube is just a mixture of all that. Of course, there's going to be some junk, but there is some scientific journals. There's Class A encounters by credible people, military, police, firemen, truckers, professors out there. So truth comes in many shapes and forms, and you just have to be a sponge of it all. Newspaper, radio, firsthand witnesses, even like fictional books or movies, because they clearly are written by people higher up and they have some kind of information. So even like Smallfoot, Abominable, Bigfoot Family, all these animated movies, they drop gems of truth. But yeah, man, I've definitely felt a little bit of friction with my loud and proud spirit and attitude. But once people really start to get to know me, they see that I just want to spread awareness, spread the word about Bigfoot and make it more normal, and I'll be the crazy guy to make them feel more normal, and that's a weird technique, a weird formula, but I feel like it works. If I'm so authentic, then they can meet me halfway and feel somewhat safe. And that's kind of what this all started, like Bigfoot Anonymous, kind of like Alcohol Anonymous. Like you feel safe when you're talking to me because I'm open-minded. I've done enough research to hear the weirdest parts, and I've had some strange things happen to me. Plus, I've put myself on the outside of society, the outside of my family, the outside of my own body and mind to kind of get closer to the spirit world and to these answers. So I've made sacrifices that I knew were going to set me back somehow, but it could get me closer in other aspects. So it's a personal journey, but it's a reflection of me and it's a reflection of you, and everybody. I feel like we all just have to open up a little bit more. Old, young, new, and veteran. We all can learn from another, and that's the beauty of it. And I'm big on just open and learning and soaking it all up. And sometimes when people are skeptical or just closed off or they're secretive about their techniques, oh man, sometimes I want to drill them into the dirt, but then other times you got to just respect the privacy. But yeah, man, I'm definitely going to be loud and proud. And if people aren't rocking with it, they better get some thick earmuffs and they better not show up at any conferences or listen to any podcasts, because me and my gang and my movement and the people that just represent positivity and bringing this to the forefront, like these TV shows are awesome, but they're filmed like 13 months before they air. We are out here live on TikTok, live on YouTube, barely showing any edits and casting footprints in front of 1,200 people and maybe messing up on one. But that's part of the art of getting good at this. And, once you're ready and well-rounded, that's when, the thunder strikes and all the stars align. So it's just an ongoing mission for me. And every camp out, every conference, every talk and conversation, I get closer to where we need to be. And I don't even see an end game. I just want to keep building that bridge to strangeness. That way people, mothers that are out there and they see a Sasquatch and they don't have anybody to talk to. I want it to be more normal for them so they don't lose their minds. And so they don't think they lost it. I want to make things normal, and I want people to know what is out there, because Bigfoot's just the beginning of it. Just even in Ohio, you have mermaids at Ohio River. You have the Grassman, Mothman, Lake Erie Monster, who is the cousin of Nessie. And then just like all the caves underneath, we start talking about Middle Earth, like the Hobbit or Jack and the Beanstalk. Why are they spraying the skies? What are they hiding up there? It really just comes from everywhere. And you have to just, soak in what you can. And some people say, Connor can't decide the difference between fictional and fact. No, it's once you go back to the source, you see that nothing has ever been made up. It's just pulled from existence already. Three-headed monsters, it's somewhere. It's probably in the pillars of Earth protecting us from the inner sun. But yeah, it gets wild, but I also, can stay grounded with Native American facts, footprints, measurements, grade A sightings all across America. So any way that people desire to hear about Sasquatch or to read about Sasquatch, I'll be there for them.
Speaking of, recently, you found and casted a pretty interesting track in Florida. Do you want to talk about that?
Yes. I was looking for the 2-egg stump jumper, which is supposed to be a smaller version of the skunk ape. And it's in a town called 2-Egg. And there's a couple rivers there, the Chipola River and then the Chattahoochee River, which is, famous in itself because it was connected to the Atlanta murders and a bunch of other treasure hunts that have taken place there. But there's a story that they say there's like a 3-toed beast of Tuareg that has been lurking there since like the 1800s. And some people said it was just like a feral man. Other people said it was like the Swamp Thing, like a creature from the Black Lagoon, like a gill man, like a reptilian type of amphibioid creature. And I got to talk to some witnesses, and I was out there with my friend Cassie. And of course they say the Sasquatch like the blondes. So of course going Sasquatching with some blondes is fun, but using them as safe bait is a good experiment as well. But we recorded some strange sounds, and I actually found a footprint on one of the side trails that usually I don't even take. But there was recent storms that put down a bunch of trees in my main spot. So I took one of the lesser known ones, and I ended up finding this print that it was about like 14 inches long. So it's nothing groundbreaking, but it was very wide. I had boots on, and I could only count 3 or 4 toes. And this thing was wider than my boot. And some people said it kind of was like a web looking thing. But it was very cool because I was able to run back to my car. I had plaster of Paris, and I ran back and then casted it. And I have it right now, and it's came out perfect, and it's very cool. I'm going to be showing it off at a conference in June. And I've also casted a couple other prints in the same area. There was one that we got in a cave while we were scouting for a movie. And it was really cool because we were filming for like 2 hours that day. No interference, no nothing. And we go down in a cave, and we're looking around, filming, just talking about the cave, and we discover one lone footprint. And I'm like, oh my God, that's crazy. And during the film, when we look back, there's tons of radio interference. And some people said it could be them trying to communicate with you. Other people said you're underground, that's why you had interference. This was high level equipment, like $5,000-$6,000 camera setup. So it's not just like your average Joe. It's very strange this happened. But I ended up casting this print that it was going uphill on a bank. So the feet or the toes dragged for like 3 or 4 inches. So I got 4 inches of the drag and then the slender like foot. And I was thinking in my head, I'm like, man, this is either a small Sasquatch, like a female, or this is like a caved crawler, like the movie The Descent. Or, I'm open to maybe it was a homeless railroader that, maybe knew about the cave and he was swimming in there and bathing, and maybe the other footprints piled up. But then I was watching Shane Carpenter's Into the 400, and a lot of his female cast look exactly like this one. So I think it's a young female, but it's very interesting. And then we've casted a couple other prints that were about like 16 inches. And then I got one that it looks like 2 knuckles, which is really, really interesting. And then we found another strand or another batch of hair while we were in Myakka. And that was orange. And if you put it under a microscope, it's clear, gray, and black. And Tim T in Florida, and then Supernatural Spectrum. They both did a video going under the microscope and talking about it. Very cool stuff. So I'm big on like the firsthand evidence, but then I've also got tons of recordings of their sounds, their whoops, their howls. We were, oh my gosh, it's so crazy to talk about, but we were in Flat Rock, Alabama, which is Evergreen, Alabama. They made a documentary called The Town That Loved Bigfoot. Well, our friend Flat Rock Booger, he has a YouTube. He has had them on his property since he's moved in, and they bang on the side of his house. They've opened up his mom's door and stuck their head in. They've killed one of the dogs. He has tons of recordings, them going, hey, crazy, crazy audio. So we went up there to film a documentary called From Fear to Understanding, and we had a parabolic dish to record their sounds, and there was coyotes, but then you hear the Sasquatch singing with them in the background, and the sounds are very interesting. And Matt's big on like, these are the next Sierra sounds, and I'm just very excited. The sound that I was super pumped about that night, though, it was like a grunt. They were trying to get the dogs to bark, so that way they knew where the dogs were in the yard, so that way they can maneuver. So they try to bait and switch with the dogs. But that was a crazy weekend. The first night we camped out there with a guy named Tyler Howell, who's a former police officer, very trained with the weapon, our protector out there. The next night, it was just me and Matt. And Matt may have been abducted by aliens. So he had a crazy thing. He's talking about it in his documentary. He heard some strange noise on the recorder, like a whirling above him. And he had a dream that his whole tent was being lifted up. And around that same time, I heard something run past our tent and I yelled, "Hey!" Again, kind of like the Sasquatch were doing to the dogs. I wasn't trying to yell at the thing or anything. I was just trying to get it to move a bit so I could, see where it was or feel where it was. But that was so crazy. Flat Rock, Alabama. It's the Chapolga River. It goes right into his backyard, and there's BFRO official sightings. We were just in the Mecca. And my next goal is I'm going to camp out there alone by myself. I love Matt, but he basically left me alone because he takes sleeping medication. So he was asleep at like 11:30. So I was already out there alone. I need to really throw myself out to the wolves. But I'm a mixture of a daredevil, a explorer, and a citizen scientist. So it's a really cool mixture just to live.
What do you think about the different foot differences and like the different numbers of toes? Do you think we're dealing with one creature, or are these differences in tracks actually other creatures that we just assume is Bigfoot because that's what we happen to be looking for at the time?
Yeah, that's a great question. Sometimes with these three-toed tracks, I feel like, they call it Bigfoot right away, like more in like the Louisiana area. They just jump to, oh yeah, that's just the three-toed Bigfoot. That's just the Honey Island Swamp monster. But of course, it could be a Rougarou, which is a different type of creature than Sasquatch. But it could be something all different. There's trolls out there. There are frogmen and other type of things. But just the footprints that I've seen firsthand, like down in the Everglades by Dave Shealy, he has the three-toed footprints, the three-toed skunk apes. And those toes are really strong and they look like they could climb on trees. But then out here in the Panhandle, I kind of think that like Tennessee Bigfoot probably come down here once it's really cold. So we get the more traditional Sasquatch, like Patty, and then you look at the Myakka skunk ape photos, how it looks like it has a snout and with sharp teeth. I would think that would probably have more of the 3 or 4 toed creature. So yeah, I think it's this. If we're not talking Rougarou or any of that, just skunk ape and Sasquatch and Mogollon monster and other types of subspecies, I think it's just like dogs, how there's Chihuahuas and there's Great Danes. They're all going to come in many different shapes and sizes. I'm pretty sure all of them have the same amount of toes, but add in adaptation and then probably inbreeding too. I don't know. I know I've just roundabouted that, but it's a interesting concept. And yes, I think some are dogman tracks that are three-toed with the pad at the bottom, and then others are lizard men. And then there are Sasquatch that have had 3 toes, 4 toes, 5 toes traditional. And then, of course, they say how the Nephilim have 6 toes. So it's interesting. In Myakka, we got a 6-toe print. In the Everglades, I've seen 3-toed prints. Most of mine out here are 5, but the one I found 2 days ago was 3 to 4. So it's just very interesting. I think it's adaptation, inbreeding, but also different subspecies. Because if you look at the Myakka skunk ape and then you look at Patty, those are 2 different looking Sasquatch, different type of creatures. But I feel like same DNA or very similar DNA.
So what got you headed down this path? What sparked your interest and your passion into the subject?
Yes, I've always been into strange cryptids, of course, with the Lake Erie monster. Every time we were fishing in Lake Erie and my rod bent over, it was Bessie, of course. But then I was into unsolved mysteries. My dad was a fireman. I spent many nights at the firehouse talking to other firemen, them riling me up, but also riding the fire truck, going up, seeing fires, and then also just being on first response, shortness of breath, very simple ones, and then also ones that just people didn't make it. So I grew up real quick, and life, death, and stories of afterlife and extreme adult was around me all the time. But my friend Jake and Alex actually had an encounter with a wolfman, the Wolfman of Sleepy Hollow. And they told me about it. It was late day. They were being driven home by a fireman from the rec center, and they saw a creature dart across the road and then up a steep hill right by a barn. And at first they thought it was a deer, but then they realized it was on two legs, and they saw it looked like a werewolf, like, because it was before dog man was ever a phrase. And they maybe thought it was a Bigfoot because Jake describes it as possible Bigfoot, but they always said wolfman. And then a couple months later, I was going to a golf league, and that was on Saturday, and we were sleeping at Alex's house on Friday. And I was real stoked because it was my first time, and I heard all about the Wolfman. And then his basement was super decked out because his family was very well off. They had a bar, they had all the best gaming systems, ping pong table, like skee ball, pool table, big screen, everything. It was kids' dream come true. And I ended up being pretty late getting over there, so we didn't play in the backyard or anything. So it's just pretty much straight to the house. And we're playing billiards downstairs, pool. We're shooting pool, and for a couple hours, no alarms, no nothing. And then suddenly a wave just hits all three of us. We feel like we're being watched. They actually typed it up for my first book, and they described it as they heard something. They physically heard something outside in the backyard. I don't think that we heard something. I don't think that's even possible to hear something. I think it was more maybe infrasound, or maybe just our sixth sense, just knowing something was watching us, you know? So we dart over and we turn off all the lights, and we're looking through this little window, and we're looking into the back den because it's about like 40, 50 yards. Then it goes into the woods, and it's an area called Caves and Cliffs. And there's caves and cliffs, deep caves. And then there's also a abandoned drive-in theater and an abandoned swimming hole with like a diving board. So archaic ruins. And back there is pretty dense and pretty decked out. Like if something wanted to hide out and live, it could for a very long time. But we saw a hulking black figure pretty much at the edge of the yard, right where it started going downward. And he was eye level to us, maybe a little bit above us. But I think that his legs were probably two feet down. So this thing was either 5 to 9 feet. And I didn't really see his eyes or anything. Of course, my buddies described it as glowing eyes. That's what they typed. But I just remember seeing it so black that it was darker than the night behind it. And that was just what's so crazy. Because now I look at the Brunswick Blue Devil. That was our hometown mascot. If you look in West Virginia, the Blue Devil is a werewolf. So it's really crazy that I think when it's so black, it turns blue or purple. But we I look at this creature and pretty much paralyzed in time. And it probably felt like, a couple hours, but it was just a couple seconds, like 3 or 4 seconds. And then we jumped into the stairwell and then waited a couple minutes. We look back out there, coast is clear. And they try to watch Saving Private Ryan, and we end up all having to go upstairs because we were so scared. Then the next morning, his mom's like, "Oh, why'd you guys sleep upstairs, not downstairs?" Like, we saw a creature in the backyard. And then she's all by the book, really churchy. She said, "You know what? I've heard man-like owl calls every single night since we've moved in here." So she kind of like was there for us. And for an adult, to say that, especially like a square adult like her, that was big for her, and it meant a lot. But we were never past that night, like right after we were trying to watch the movie, I was never really scared or terrified from going into the woods. And I asked Alex if him or his family ever had any more encounters, and they didn't. So I think he was just very curious. Maybe he was passing by. Maybe he lived in those caves. But he could have easily killed us, ripped us to shreds, and didn't. So, all these LBL and Brownsville, Texas, they're going to rip you apart. Like, those stories happen, but not all dogmen and werewolf and just black canine, upright biped canine. I think there's many different forms of these too, because there's stories of transformation at the highest level of Freemasonry. And then there's cursed people and people that maybe are bit by a wolf and transform. But then I think there's these animals that are just large, black, intelligent, canines, I guess, werewolf type creatures. And that's what I think we saw. It was more animal than man.
You just caused me to think of something interesting, a different perspective. So congratulations. Because, I think about this stuff all the time. The majority of my day is spent thinking about cryptids and the paranormal and everything strange. Like you, I've always had the bug since I was a little kid.
Yeah.
In school, one of my favorite subjects was Greek mythology. Mm-hmm. And one of the interesting things, we may have some differing views on this, but a lot of things in Greek mythology and just in humans in general, we come up with explanations for things that we don't understand to make them fit into what we know. Lightning, was a bolt from Zeus, not static electricity in the atmosphere. Dogman, werewolves. Do you think maybe that humans have been seeing these creatures all along and that it actually was the creation of the werewolf type mythos to explain why they were seeing a canine walking on two legs? Or do you think that shapeshifters and all that came before the sightings of these things and are actually based in fact? Do you think people can shift into animals somewhere or somehow?
Yeah, I think it's definitely a mixture of both, but I definitely think the shapeshifters and shadow walkers start at the beginning, because just our electrons, protons, and neutrons, we have the ability to become two forms: particle form, that's solid all the time, 99% of our life, or waveform. And that's in our capabilities. We could become waveform. You go to the Montana vortex, you walk across a straight line, your body will actually shift and change a little bit. So yes, I think that these masters of manipulation or these grid gatekeepers probably can, tap into that energy a little easier. It probably takes a lot of training and high level sorcery probably, and it comes at a high cost, but I definitely think that it's possible. I've heard so many stories of, these portals or boulders swallowing people up, and then electrical charges inside some of these mountains and caverns. It's interesting. And I just look at us as balls of energy because, I've done enough psilocybin and other psychedelics that I could see that there's more out there than what my eyes and my ears can hear and feel and taste right now. There's just so much out there that's beyond my receptors and my perception. It's very interesting. And I think, yes, these werewolves and elementals and deities and maybe these ancient gods or just extraterrestrials, these things that came from these other lands. I believe there's probably more than 100 continents out there, and they leak it to us through, Disney movies and Jurassic Park, The Lost Kingdom. Like, there's still islands with these giant dragons and King Kong still lurking. Like, I definitely believe there's some degree of that out there. And of course, that way, Bigfoot and, these mound builders that were teaching the Native Americans, that's just not very strange. That's all kind of explainable. So again, it gets so that sci-fi, but then, I think Sasquatch and, paranormal stuff, just energy, it's very normal. It's very in our capabilities. And again, I'm trying to build that bridge of the supernatural and the woo. People make fun of the woo. It's like, dude, when we were babies and you had a problem or an accident in your pants, you could, signal to your mom through the whole house. And that's not the woo. That's just life. That's in this realm. That's Earth, baby.
Very interesting perspective. You're just running the gambit on things here. Do you have a place where your belief system stops? Do you have certain things where you're just like, you know what? No, that's too much for me. Or are you just open to all of it?
Yeah, I'm pretty open, but I'm also very skeptical. Like, I don't buy any of this NASA BS or any of these billionaires going to space, William Shatner. I don't don't buy into the establishment right now. All these Hollywood actors, I know who they really are. So yeah, I don't know. Conspiracy wise, I'm open ears to it all, but I don't believe everything. But honestly, I'm more skeptical of like the real life stuff, that how people live and die by. I don't correspond or subscribe to any of that. That's why I find myself on the outside of a lot of circles, but I feel like my exuberance and my authenticness, 5% of me people can identify with, and that's where they find themselves. Like, I feel like people have read about some of these and they're scared to talk about it to some of their friends. I'm that loud voice saying, read it, go to that water, drink it, do as much as you can, but safely as possible, but be brave in your research. That's how I hold it to everybody. A lot of people that, they draw the lines at the woo. And I'm like, no, guys, we are paranormal. We all dream, we build worlds while we sleep. And then we have amnesia the second we wake up. Like there's something to all of this. And I'm just trying to collect as much data as possible through my voice, through my words, and through my memories. I hope people, they might not remember my name. They might not remember jack crap about what I say, because it's all crazy and there's a lot of facts, but I just hope people remember how I made them feel, because this world is so bland nowadays and so predictable, and you feel like you know everything and you know what people are going to say. I feel like I'm that asterisk, I'm the change that hopefully is the spark. And, hopefully people can be a little bit more authentic with themselves or with their family after they see it with me. Because, I've definitely been through the trials with my parents and with my family members, and some have turned their back on me. But my mom and my dad definitely support this mission because they know in my heart who I am. And they know that I carry that with this, and it all comes together. So they might, my mom and dad both like Bigfoot and big stuff like that, but they might not subscribe to all my rambling and ranting, but they know it comes from a good source, a source of light, a source of just people, a source of love. And I feel like a lot of the establishment and a lot of these fake missions, they ain't coming from source of love. That's why I sniff it out like it's nothing. Like it's fake. Boom. Like I'm on to the next. But yeah, I try to remain positive because, it's a heavy burden, the knowledge of knowing what's really going on out there. So I don't try to depress people every day, but I try to positively be their guide in a way. But I want everybody to live their own life. But cross that stream and, hey, step on my back to make sure your boots don't get wet. I'm all for it. So I wouldn't tell anybody to do something I would never do.
So do you think Bigfoot, for instance, we'll just take that since it's the main subject of this show. Will Bigfoot ever be proven?
As much as the aliens are proven right now, the UFOs, they give these little announcements out that have already been confirmed underground for the last 5 years or decade, depending on the research. But we've seen it get close with like the Melba Ketchum DNA sample, but then that gets torn apart. There's hundreds of samples and it's all just voided because a couple things go wrong. I don't think academia is really jumping to prove Bigfoot, but there are enough researchers finding hair and saliva and coming up with good ways to get blood from them and other DNA ways. Doug Hychek is, big on that. The producer of Monster Quest, of course. And then he is linked up with a guy named Darby that's part of some university study. And we're actually sending our Mayaca hair to be, analyzed through that. So it depends on what circles you are part of, because some people know that Sasquatch has been captured, killed, breeded to find the other free Sasquatch. And then some other people are still debating the Patterson-Gimlin footage or still arguing over the mid-tarsal break. I definitely think that some Sasquatch have the mid-tarsal break. I think others have other shaped feet too. Again, there's so many different forms and shapes of these creatures that, even when pareidolia shows up in the forest. It's not Sasquatch every time, but I also believe that these elementals in the forest can maybe create faces in the woods. So you can't throw out every piece of evidence, but it's also, a blurry picture of Sasquatch is not going to confirm anything. I know you've seen my TikTok. 25 million people have seen my TikTok, and there's some clear pictures on there, but I haven't heard, Fox 8 News or CNN writing about it. You might get some Daily Star and some local newspapers, but I feel like the pictures I have shared from myself or from some researchers that I'm correspond with, that should have, popped the can already. But I feel like it's some kind of agenda. It's all science. But again, I put the power in community. And if we raise the standard, then we already know the awareness is there. Down here in Florida, we all know the skunk ape exists. It says it in the hunting guidelines. Inside the paperwork you got to fill out, it says no taking of swamp or skunk apes. And, some people might think that's a joke, but that's an official government document. And then, of course, the Pentagon has just released 1,500 pages about it, and they call it Sasquatch multiple times in there. So again, it depends on where you get your research from, because people tell me all the time, like, oh, there's no proof. But, I have proof on my dinner table, and so does 1,000 other researchers. And then 1,000 or, tens of thousands other civilians that have just remained in the shadows. One of my favorite stories is 50 Years with Bigfoot by Mary Green, about the Carter farm where, Grandpa Carter found Fox when he was a little baby. He was crushed by a tree, and then they raised Fox. So you got to see Fox start a family and kind of learn the Sasquatch dynamic. And it's just a beautiful story. And then you have Janice, who still is doing interviews and telling people this interesting knowledge, and she has telepathy with these creatures. So that's where it starts to get even more sci-fi. But again, we have low levels of telepathy. I think if we didn't get zapped by Wi-Fi or drinking, poison all the time, we probably could work more levels of telepathy. You do eye gazing, or even holding a loved one's hand, you can, share thoughts to another. So if you've been, holding hands with a Sasquatch who has been nothing but vibes and earthling for their whole life, you're going to feel something. So I feel like there's just so much to learn from them. And sometimes, I go out with the camera, and other times I don't. And, you don't get the evidence if you don't bring the camera, but then you get the moment. So I walk that line of balance of sharing it with the world and then also living it myself.
And you put some of these thoughts into books.
Yes.
You've got quite a few books under your belt. You want to talk about those and kind of tell everybody what they're about?
Oh, yeah. An author loves talking about his work.
Yeah, man. Free publicity.
Yes, man. So I've gotten 4 books published. I started off self-publishing them, and then I signed a book deal with Beyond the Fray. Shannon LeGros, of course, from Small Town Monsters, The Dark Skies, UFO movies. She's awesome. It's real cool when, your heroes and your idols become your peers and your friends. It's a surreal experience, but I feel it every day. That's what happens when you spread your wings. This world gets real small because your light is big. But I've been a writer my whole life. I literally have a letter that I wrote to myself before 2001. So I was 8 years old, and promised myself that I'd be a writer, a singer, and a basketball player. Well, I umpire and referee sports now, but yes, I do play guitar around the fire, and I'm a writer, young Connor. I'm sticking to it. But I was the head sports writer and editor of my school newspaper, and I won poetry contests and was always writing. And then I went to Bowling Green and wrote some films and did some short films. So it's always just been a passion of just going from my dark room to on the screen or on the piece of paper. It was always a cool transformation for me. But then once I moved from Ohio down to Florida, I lived out of my car. I joined a punk rock musical band, and I was the only person I knew, so I had a lot of alone time that I was in my head. And I was like, I gotta get some of these memories out, some of these experiences out. So it's just a heavy burden. I gotta share it just so I can create more, just so I can be easier on myself. So I started writing pretty much all 4 of these books at the same time. And the first one is Eerie Swamps Road Trip to Eden. And I kind of talked about Garden of Eden earlier, but it is a sacred spot right here in the Panhandle of Florida. There's actually a trail called Garden of Eden Trail. 27 of the 28 trees in the Bible are in that preserve. And then the good book describes a delta that breaks into 4 rivers. One of the only places in the world that has that, right there. Noah that built the ark with gopher wood. That's also known as Torreya coniferous. And one of the only few places it grows in the whole world is right there. So it's very sacred. That might be where life began. But again, I think there are many Edens. I think there are many Atlantises. This biosphere is probably 5%, 1% of what it used to be. There used to be giants and leviathans, a lot of big, large things, and now they're mud fossils. But I think it's a really cool thing because it's a road trip to Eden, but it's Erie Swamps, Lake Erie down to the Florida swamps, my journey, my life, and then road trip to Eden. The final chapter goes back to where it all began. But yeah, I lived out of my car from Ohio down to Florida, and I wrote about it. And it's really cool because I used to visit my aunt down here in Panama City to go deep sea fishing. So I feel like my path was already paved. But talk about the Tennessee Titans, Witch's Ball, Crybaby Bridge, Mansfield Prison, Moundsville Penitentiary, and a couple mounds that giant bones were excavated at, because I'm all about the mound builders. In the Ohio Valley is tons of stories with Wheeling and then even Pittsburgh. There's tons of crazy giant stories that they all correspond with other decades, other articles. They're in a seated position facing the east, covered in copper with rubies. America had kings and queens, y'all. I ain't going to worship no politician when we had real kings and queens. But yeah, man, that's the first book, Eerie Swamps, Road Trip to Eden. It's a story about me. It's a story about you. But my newest book that just came out is Big Brother Bigfoot. And I love that one because it is my story researching all these creatures. And I go from the Ohio Grassman, Youallegheny Yowie, Washington Wild Thing, Clear Lake Creature of Ontario, the Susquehanna Seal, Tennessee Titans, Honey Island Swamp Monster, Ocheesee Pond Wildman, DeSoto Demons, Pascagoula Prowler, Texas Wood Booger, Desert Apes, Mogollon Monster, Mojave Sandman, Big Bear Beast, and then the final chapter is just around the world. But that's my life work of going after these cryptids, camping at these different spots, and hearing firsthand encounters from witnesses, and then just the strange stuff that happened to me. Mild stuff like tapping on the car in the middle of the night, to all the way hearing strange noises in Tennessee and being ran out of the woods because we thought we were going to be the ones being sacrificed. And it's some dark, crazy stuff. But again, it's Big Brother Bigfoot. It's about the bridge between these wild men, and they are so mysterious and strange and so far away from people. But guys, they used to live with the Hoopa people, in California. Like, we used to live with the Sasquatch, y'all. So again, I'm just building that bridge. And then my third book, Monsters and Mysteries Around the Corner. I actually just finished the copy today with the publisher. So it's going to be dropping in the next few days. I'm super excited. That one is all about how we don't have to go far for scary stories. They will find us either on our family tree or our own road. I grew up on Boston Road. You follow Boston, it goes all the way to Helltown, Cuyahoga Valley National Park. That's where the Grassman roams. So it's really cool that I feel like the book wrote itself. My life wrote itself. The fourth book and the final book out right now, Panhandle Pirates. That one was pretty cool because I finished that one live. All those other ones were reflective and, kind of remembering. this one, Panhandle Pirates, I was dang near writing it on the way home from the places. So you get to really experience my thoughts, my feelings, my attitude. And that one talks about Huggin' Molly, which is a giant creature up in Alabama. She's actually on the sign, "Welcome to Abbeville." And then there's a picture of Huggin' Molly, and she's like a 7-foot tall demon type creature that she'll catch you after dark. She'll squeeze you so hard your bones break, and then she'll scream in your ear till you go insane or go deaf. You hope you go deaf before you lose your mind. But then the Mobile Wolf Woman, my favorite she-wolf, she is so curvy too. So catch me looking for her extra time. And then, of course, the Cohelee Creek Goat Man, which is a sad story about how a man got killed by a hate group. Then he turned to half man, half beast for his revenge. So with that one, I'm with the Goat Man. I'll help track him down, buddy. I got the yellow pages right here. But it's just a fun journey. The Pensacola Serpent, too. That's another Nessie-type creature that killed 4 people in the Gulf. Doesn't really get talked about. But it's me going against cryptids and leviathans, kraken, and then also looking for treasure, because I'm just a modern day pirate as well.
Sounds awesome. Absolutely. And where can people get these books if they want to check them out themselves?
Yes, man. They are available on Amazon. If you search Eerie Swamps, Big Brother Bigfoot, or my name, Connor Flynn, ConnorFlynn, just like Errol Flynn. I always got compared to him because he was an adventurer, and then he turned into a great actor. I might not be a great actor yet, but I am in a couple movies too. They're pretty wild. One is called Zillafoot. It is available on Amazon Prime for free to check out. It is half Godzilla, half Bigfoot, and I play a cryptid research officer. The military brings me in for expertise. I give them the lowdown. They get me out of there. But it did so well online through SRS Cinemas that it actually got a widespread release, and it's in Walmart, Best Buy, FYE, your local rental store. But yeah, it's really fun. And some of the movie is so bad it's good, but I'm really proud of my parts. And the guy that directed my scenes is my best buddy, Jack McClellan, and he is actually scripted to do the second one solo. So our 3 characters, the best characters, will be the main characters of the sequel. So I'm super pumped about that. And then we got our short film that I am the main character of debuting next month, and it's called The Void Cat, and it is a Dogman movie. It is crazy. I again play a researcher. I find this cursed idol, like a weird sculpture in a silo, and then the thing takes over my mind and it starts manifesting, and it's a werewolf type creature, and it's really, really good. And a lot of people have enjoyed it. It's gotten top 3 in like 5 film festivals. We got a standing ovation at the Tallahassee Horror Festival. It was just awesome though, because again, I'm just being myself, rambling on about lycanthropes and rougarous. So it's just a piece of me, and it's definitely something I'm really proud of, but it's really fun and outrageous too. So you get the serious side, and then you get the psychedelic fun as well. But then I just wrote a mermaid movie that we are putting into production. So that's going to be my first script that is getting like really put into it. Like, of course, I've written stuff and done some backyard films, but this will be a real movie. And it's called Eternal Siren. The siren is, of course, the mermaid, and eternal, forever. So it's going to be super interesting. And then one more movie I'm filming. Well, 2 more movies. One I'm filming right now called Fallout. It's a Fallout film, which is really cool. It's a video game, of course, about the end of the world. But Fallout 76 is all about like the West Virginia area, right where I, came from. And they got the grafted monster, Mothman, and like Sasquatch beast. And I play a raider in this, and I talk about this raggedy man, and he's 9 foot tall, like Sasquatch. So it's again like I'm having these nuclear Fallout movies. and I'm still bringing Sasquatch to it. And then the last movie I'll talk about right now is called Pain in the Rear. And I play a car thief, and there's a girl in the back of the car. And I'm like, do I kill her or do I save her? And I take the car to the chop shop. And then sadly, another guy takes her, and he doesn't make it out. She is a goblin. She is a banshee. She rips him to shreds. So hopefully she shows me a little bit of mercy when she chops off my head. But the girl we got is a pretty girl, so we'll be all right. I'll take it as I can get it. But I'm enjoying the journey, and I love writing. I love acting. I love podcasting. I love hiking. I love riling people up. I love making people feel uncomfortable too. If they don't want to hear this Sasquatch, then get out of here, because you're gonna hear it, you know. But again, I respect people too. I'm not some rude, crazy scoundrel, but hey, you know, if you come in my breathing air, you came here. I'm required to be here. You chose to be here, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. So what's your future plans in the world of cryptid? You got anything on the horizon?
Yes, man. Originally, I was about to be, getting back from the 168 through Bigfoot Odyssey, but they postponed that. So hopefully by the end of the year, we'll be going out 168 hours in the swamp straight. That's going to be awesome. Got a crazy team that people I've already camped with and hiked with. So it's just going to be like going out with family. I'm super excited about that. I'm speaking at the Southwest Florida Town Hall Conference. It's some kind of skunk ape conference, June 4th in Punta Gorda, and it's going to be so dope. Dave Seeley, Stacy Brown, RPG from Expedition Bigfoot, a lot of cool people. Mark Muncy, one of my favorite writers, he wrote Erie, Florida, and he actually came up here and we did some tours and checked out some caves. So it's real cool, again, when you get to meet your idols and your favorite writers and your favorite Sasquatch researchers. Like Stacy Brown is my bro now. You know, that was my favorite. He was my favorite. He was like Tony Gwynn. He was like Deion Sanders. He was my favorite. So now he's my bro. And, you know, we get to share information and go out and camp together. So it's really cool becoming yourself, you know. But, yeah, I got a couple more books coming out, bunch more movies. That documentary that we filmed up in Flat Rock, From Fear to Understanding, will be coming out in the next, 2 months. I'm supposed to be speaking up in Alabama at a little small town hall conference as well. But man, yeah, I stay active, and I'm off the next 4 days. So best believe I'm going to get 5 hours of footage. I'm going to go kayaking, looking down the Chipola River for the Cobra Gator. It's a crazy movie that was filmed. It's kind of like Nessie, kind of like the Pensacola Serpent. So it's really fun looking for these, giant Leviathan snallygaster beasts, and then also just the hairy man in the woods, the 2-egg stump jumper. And again, I'm all about bridging people closer to it. I go live on TikTok and have 2,700 people watching me fall off a stick down and calling for help. But it's all about the realness, and real is not perfect. I might stutter my words, I might mess up, but no, it's authentic. No one's perfect. That's not how the world works. We just have to be more true, more real to ourselves. And the whole charade of the news and society, it's not for me. And even the movies and stuff, I do that. It fulfills me, but I also do it to show that anybody can make movies and write books. I'm just a dude. I'm just a burnout, according to a lot of people. And I won't let that define me. I've hiked more, I've read more, and I've wrote more. So I'm gonna keep going hard with it, And it's all about just making a difference and trying to remain positive. And in this weird cryptid world, there's a lot of skeptics. I wake up to hundreds of negative comments every day on TikTok, but you just got to brush it off for finding your tribe. 100 people, 70 of them might kick you to the curb, but 7 might wait for you and have some hot soup and open that door for you. And I've slept under bridges. I've had to dig into dumpsters, and all that was by my own accord. I lived out of my car for me to build this journey to become who I was supposed to be. So it was all by choice or all by fate, and you just have to accept it at that point. So again, I'm just rolling with the punches, trying to be the best I can be. But I know I'm going to struggle. I'm going to fumble. I'm going to get back up, though. And that's what it's about.
Words to live by and words to squatch by, for sure.
Yes.
If people, if their heads are spinning listening to you now, and I know I've got some listeners out there that have been with me over the years, and I'm sure some of them are just like, oh, this guy's full of it. Why don't you run over your numbers on TikTok? What kind of following do you got on TikTok?
Yes, I think we're at about 74,000 followers right now, and we surpassed 20 million views long ago. And all the DMs from people that have said, "Oh man, you've brought me closer. Me and my dad love watching your TikToks." Like, that's what it's about. And people can get away. There's so many people out there locked down right now, or just not able to hike and to explore the great outdoors. So when I'm out there, I'm out there at 8 a.m, and by 10 o'clock, we already got 2 hours of footage, and we've been talking about trees and listening to the birds and looking at different berries and different funguses. So it's like, not only about Bigfoot, we're enjoying life and nature and living and learning. So again, some people are not going to get this speed. They're not going to feel it 1,000,000%, but know that it comes from positive energy, and know that it has to be done. You might not rock with it, but it has to be done. Someone has to do it. And that someone is me. You saw it in the Yeti bars commercial. You saw the energy. Someone has to bring that to this cryptid community, and that's me.
Absolutely. Connor Flynn, where can people find you on the internet?
You guys can find me at Bigfoot Anon. Please follow me and subscribe on YouTube. I got an awesome community. I do a premiere that's about 2 hours long, once or twice a week, and we all meet up there. We all get to talk, chat, share experiences, thoughts, make friends. I'm all about sharing your link, and I'm all about community. That's what it's really about. But you can also find me on TikTok, Bigfoot Anon, Bigfoot Anonymous. However it comes up. I post new evidence or a new post every day at 5 Central, and then I go live as often as I can. I'm also on Instagram. I post a lot on there. That's where my initial hustle started. A lot of just regular podcasts, voice only like this. Now I've moved to more YouTube Live. But it's really cool, having a strong base on the Instagram, and just the paranormal community is huge on there. But Bigfoot Anonymous started on SoundCloud, guys. All I would do is narrate anonymous encounters that I would find online. I would read newspaper articles and about Sasquatch, and then also about the giant bone excavations. I have more than 10 hours of giant bone excavations audio. And again, some of them might be a little fishy, but if you got dozens that correlate, that are on different newspapers, different pages, back page, front page, side column. It was just news back in the day. And they all or a lot of the information correlates to the same stuff. That's where we can gain ground. That's where we can write it down and start building from there. But yeah, guys, Connor Flynn, Bigfoot Anonymous. I'm on Amazon, Zillafoot on Amazon Prime. But I'm easy to reach. Come find me online. Pop into one of my podcasts. Say what's up, because I'm all about community. I'm all about love. I'm all about pushing the boundaries. And I love when people challenge me, of course, in a friendly, positive way. I want my mind to explode. I want my mind to bend. If there's anybody out there that has hiked more than me, that has been on more podcasts than me, has ran their mouth more than me this year, come my way. I want to team up with you 1,000,000%. But again, I'm this Energizer bunny, boom, boom, boom. And I hope, I could just rub off on a little people, and they can carry it with me. Again, they're not always going to remember who I am. They're not going to remember what I said, but hopefully that glimpse, just that, like, whoa, that moment of how I made you feel, and I remember how people made me feel. And that's what my books are about too. That's all the people that shaped me. I honor them in my book, and they have everything to do with my journey. And, you know, I can't carry them. I can't thank everybody, but I want you just be thankful for everybody that's shaped our past, you know?
Absolutely. Thanks for coming on, Connor. It's been a blast, man. We are definitely going to keep in touch from here on out. You got me thinking, man. You got me thinking a lot about a lot of stuff. If anybody listening has an encounter they would like to share or want to be put in touch with a researcher to help investigate your property or just have somebody to talk to that's been through what you've been through, email me at bigfootcrossroads@gmail.com. Also, check out my website, bigfootcrossroads.com. You can find links to my social media, merchandise, and all the podcast episodes I've put out. And as always, thanks for listening to Bigfoot Crossroads.